So in this video, I'm answering the question that I perhaps get asked the most, which is, Kevin, what do you eat to look the way you do at 47 years old, soon to be 48, as a lifetime natural bodybuilder? What are you eating? We all know that diet is key. And there is a lot of curiosity about my particular eating right now. I'm going to share it with you, but I'm going to share it with one important caveat. The way I eat is what's optimal for a 47-year-old man with my body fat percentage and my muscle mass who has been training 3 times a week with really high intensity workouts and who's also been training nonstop since he was 14 years old. So it may not necessarily be what's best for you, but there are a lot of principles in there. And there's some foods in there that you may want to look at because it may help you as well. So stay tuned. So in this video, I'm talking about what I eat, answering that question. What does Kevin eat to look the way he does? Now, before I go any further, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, and also those who say that this channel is one that should be an important resource for anyone interested in training naturally. So that's for tuning in, and do be sure to like, subscribe, and also hit that bell button so you're first in line when the new content comes out. So what does Kevin eat? It's not that big of a deal what I eat. It's not very glamorous. In fact, I eat more or less the same things every day. I'm going to talk about what that is. So we'll start with breakfast, and I always have breakfast. And I do not do any type of intermittent fasting. I don't have long periods of not eating. I eat on a fairly frequent basis, and that's always been the cornerstone of not just where I am now, but what I did to get here. So for breakfast, I start with oat bran cereal. Oat bran cereal is the highest fiber cereal that I could find. And I ate oatmeal for many years, and I would recommend it as well for my clients. But what I found that oat bran cereal has a higher fiber count, and also for me personally tastes a little bit better, especially since I just have it with water, it became my breakfast food of choice. And that's pretty much what I have for breakfast every single day. No matter what, no matter where I am, even when I'm traveling, I always make sure I carry with me a bag of oat bran cereal just to make sure I have that nailed down first thing in the morning. In addition to that, I'll usually have egg whites. Now, some would ask, why don't I have egg yolks in there? And it's not because there's something wrong with egg yolks. It's simply a matter that the way I eat, I want to make sure I get as much protein first thing in the morning, as much carbohydrates first thing in the morning. Later in the day is the time when you start getting a little, how shall we say, picky. You start getting hungry, you start getting cravings. And so I like to have my fat intake later in the day so I can eat foods that are a little bit higher in fats. So I'm a little bit more satisfied when I eat, so I'm less likely to eat the wrong foods. That's pretty much the only reason why I don't have egg yolks first thing in the morning. I don't think it's a good idea to eat too many egg yolks on a regular basis because they are very high in fat and very high in calories as well, but there's nothing wrong with egg yolks per se. The next thing I have for breakfast is 1 can of Tongal tuna, salt-free Tongal tuna. And Tongal tuna is a smaller fish than albacore, and as such, it's much lower in mercury. And because it's something I eat on a regular basis, it's important that it's not necessarily a larger fish, because the larger the fish is, the higher the mercury count is going to be. And so you're always trying to find the fishes that are as small as possible, so it has as low a mercury count as possible. In addition, I may have some piece of fruit. These days, I don't really have fruit with my breakfast anymore, only because I don't really feel for it. But if my activity levels from the day before were pretty high and I feel like I need a little bit of a boost, I will have some fruit. Between breakfast and lunch, I don't tend to have any snacks. I just tend to keep on going straight through. And I only do that because I don't get hungry. As a rule, I eat when I feel the need to eat. And the times that I eat line up very well with the times when I should be eating. But as far as needing a meal between breakfast and lunch, even though I recommend it for a lot of my clients and those interested in building muscle mass and or losing weight, so you always have a little something to keep you going, that's usually because you want to make sure you don't overeat later in the day. I don't really have that problem anymore, although I did when I was younger, like I said. So for lunch, I would usually have 2 chicken breasts in addition to either some vegetables or more likely than not, some what we call ground provisions back home. So Japanese yams, sweet potatoes, plantains at times. That's pretty much the staples that I eat today. And in my other video, I talked about how I lost 30 pounds and kept it off. I talk about the evolution as well, about how I got to eating the foods that I eat for lunch. So if you haven't, make sure you check that video out as well. And that's pretty much it for lunch. Between lunch and dinner, if it's in season, I'll have some watermelon. I love watermelon. It's not high in calories at all. And even though it tastes sweet and has a high glycemic index, it does, however, have a very low glycemic load, which means that the amount of carbohydrates present in every serving is so little that it really doesn't have much effect on your insulin levels. The only sugars that I ever consume are sugars that come naturally from fruits and or some vegetables. For dinner, it's going to be either fish or grass-fed beef or bison. I don't have a problem eating red meat at all, and I actually like the idea of having higher fat fishes like salmon later in the day because, as I said before, later in the day, that's the time when you start getting a little picky, especially if your activity level was high or you had a hard day. Now, by having higher fat intakes later in the day, it allows me to not have those cravings. If I have something like a steak, it has just enough fat to make me feel satisfied and also not make me feel like I need to eat anything else. And I'm not averse to eating other meats as well for dinner. After dinner, I may have some watermelon or I may have some popcorn, but not necessarily so. It really depends on how I feel that particular day. And as completely mundane as it may be, that's pretty much it. Now, people are going to look at the numbers and run them, I'm sure. They're going to look at the calorie count and try and figure it out. It's somewhere around 2,700 calories per day. I don't look at those numbers anymore. I used to meticulously obsess over my protein intake, my fat intake, my carb intake. I don't do that anymore. I eat based on how I feel. Now, that being said, how I look isn't that important to me anymore. I am able to maintain a relatively low body fat percentage, but not because I'm eating in this restrictive way, trying to control my calories. That's really not what it is at all. What it is the foods that I eat allow me to feel satisfied, to feel at peace, to not have that many cravings. And when I do have a craving, I tend to crave the foods that I should be eating. I'll have a craving for fruit. I'll have a craving for popcorn. I'll have a craving for steak. And that's pretty much it. I don't drink anything but water. I don't drink tea. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink seltzer that much. I used to. Even with seltzer, I came to a point where I didn't feel like having it anymore. And that's it. The foods that I eat, even though for some people looking at it may sound a little bit restrictive, it really isn't. My food tastes really good, and I'm a really good cook. Anyone who's ever stopped by and had my cooking can attest to the fact that just because it's healthy doesn't mean it can't taste good. And that's true. I'm from Trinidad, and we don't really have a tradition of eating bland foods. And so all of my foods are really well seasoned. They're just not really well seasoned with salt. And as I said before, and very importantly, don't look at what I eat as a template for how you should be eating. Look at it as some principles, look at it as a guide, take some of the ideas from it, but understand as well that it's important that you find your own path. My clients don't eat exactly the way I do because none of my clients have exactly the same diet. Everyone's diet is slightly different based on where they are along the path. And it's important to understand where you are along the path. Take the information, look at it critically, and then make the best decisions for yourself. Hopefully, some of the foods I talked about here spark some ideas for you and make you think about adding them to your diet. And also, some of the principles and the way that I'm eating also give you some ideas as well. So, thanks for tuning in again, and Excelsior.